It's all covered in today's China Truths.
On October 27, the U.S. and Chinese trade negotiating teams reached a temporary framework agreement in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. China agreed to postpone the implementation of rare earth export controls for 1 year and pledged to purchase $15 billion worth of U.S. soybeans. The U.S., in turn, suspended the 100% retaliatory tariffs that had been threatened against China on November 1st. The two presidents will formally sign the agreement on the 30th. However, this truce has not stopped the two sides from decoupling in the rare earth supply chain. Some analysts point out that the CCP's trump card of rare earths is entering its final stage of effectiveness. Although the agreement superficially eased tensions, internal U.S. documents reveal that the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative explicitly demanded during the negotiations that China not use rare earths as a pretext to disrupt the global supply chain, while reserving the right to unilaterally reimpose sanctions after 2026. China, in turn, included a force majeure clause to leave room for future export restrictions. Derek Scissors, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, commented that this move was intended to secure a critical window for the U.S. rare earth industry and that the CCP's rare earth deterrence has been reduced from a strategic trump card to a tactical delay. Three U.S. giants are leading the localization effort, driven by both production capacity and strategic alliances. Commentator Fang Fei analyzed that the core strategy for rebuilding the U.S. rare earth supply chain is to localize the entire process from mines to magnets, and that three leading enterprise clusters have already formed. MP Materials dominates the light rare earth market, with its Mountain Pass mine in California projected to produce 45,000 tons in 2024. Accounting for 40% of global non-Chinese production. Fang Fei noted that its magnet plant in Fort Worth, Texas, is slated to begin production in the first quarter of 2025, with an initial annual output of 1,000 tons of neodymium iron-boron magnets. The goal of the Apple-MP partnership is to reach a total production capacity of 5,000 to 7,000 tons by 2027. The U.S. Department of Defense invested $400 million, while Apple added $500 million to support the partnership. General Motors has secured a long-term supply agreement to purchase 12,500 to 3,000 tons of domestic magnets annually starting in 2026, preferring to pay 20% to 30% more rather than risk being choked again. Lynas Corporation has achieved a breakthrough in heavy rare earths. Its Seadrift, Texas, separation plant, fully funded by the Department of Defense, is expected to begin production in 2026. It will produce 500 tons of high-purity dysprosium and terbium annually, equivalent to 15% of global non-Chinese heavy rare earth output and sufficient to meet the 23-kilogram dysprosium-based magnet requirement for each F-35 fighter jet. Lynas's Malaysian plant achieved commercial separation of heavy rare earths in May this year. Fang Fei believes the Texas plant will mark a milestone in supplying military-grade heavy rare earths to the United States. American Rare Earth Corporation is converting the abandoned Hitachi plant in Stillwater, Oklahoma, into a magnet production facility. Production is expected to begin at 600 tons in early 2026, increasing to 1,200 tons by the end of the year and 5,000 tons by 2030. The Washington Post reported that the restart of Hitachi's equipment, dormant for a decade, symbolizes the resurgence of American manufacturing. Stillwater, a small town with a population of fewer than 50,000, is now experiencing a surge in jobs and economic growth thanks to the revival of the rare earth industry. Alliance coordination is also crucial. The U.S.-Australia Critical Minerals Agreement will invest $8.5 billion. Australia will add 1,500 to 2,000 tons of heavy rare earths by 2026. Meeting 20% to 30% of U.S. military demand. The U.S.-Malaysia Critical Minerals Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, is expected to contribute 5% to 10% of heavy rare earth output starting in 2027. The U.S. Export-Import Bank has provided $2.2 billion in low-interest loans, shortened environmental review cycles to 6 months, and introduced tax credits and price floors to ensure corporate profitability. The market capitalizations of MP Materials and other U.S. rare earth companies have increased by 120% and 180% respectively over the past 12 months. In the light rare earth sector, the U.S. self-sufficiency rate is expected to exceed 35% by 2026, with non-Chinese sources accounting for 25%, and import dependence on China falling below 30%. Military-grade heavy rare earths are projected to achieve a breakthrough by 2028, with mass production expected by 2030. Domestic magnet production capacity is expected to reach 15,000 tons by 27, accounting for 60% of global non-Chinese output. The U.S. Department of Defense has set a goal of achieving 100% domestic production of military rare earths by 2027, with strategic reserves sufficient to sustain supply for 6 to 12 months. The hidden truth behind China's rare earth monopoly: pollution, exploitation, and the world's dirtiest business. Weibo influencer and commentator Toronto Squareface peeled back the glamorous facade of China's rare earth dominance, revealing a dark underbelly built on pollution, human suffering, and razor-thin profits. Behind the CCP's so-called strategic advantage lies an industry that few would dare to touch, one that devours land, poisons water, and sacrifices human lives for global supply chains. Rare earths, the 17 obscure elements powering the modern world, are the invisible backbone of smartphones, electric cars, and fighter jets. Among them, neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, and terbium are the stars. These metals make up the heart of neodymium iron-boron permanent magnets, which account for nearly 30% of all global rare earth consumption. Every electric car needs 2 to 3 kilograms of these elements, while a single 3-megawatt wind turbine swallows up nearly a ton. Toronto Squareface explained that light rare earths such as neodymium and praseodymium provide magnet strength, while heavy rare earths like dysprosium and terbium give them the ability to endure extreme temperatures, a feature the military industry cannot live without. Yet, China's grip on rare earths has little to do with brilliance in technology. According to Toronto Squareface, it stems from low human rights, cheap labor, and an astonishing tolerance for pollution. China holds half of the world's known reserves, mines 65% of them, refines 85%, and manufactures 90% of the world's magnets. But these statistics, he warned, are the product of a man-mine economy, a system that burns through people and nature alike. Profits in the industry are dismal. Neodymium oxide sells for just 7.5 per kilogram, and in 2024, China's two largest separation firms reported profits of 1.4 billion yuan and losses of 287 million yuan, respectively. Four major downstream magnet producers barely survived on subsidies, each earning less than 300 million yuan. If you include environmental remediation, he said, rare earths become a guaranteed money loser. It's a bad business pretending to be a national treasure. In truth, the rare earth barrier is not technological, but toxic. Refining these elements is brutally simple, so simple that, back in 2010, more than 1 million Chinese workers could do it in small backyard workshops. The real cost is environmental. Processes such as pool leaching and underground injection release massive amounts of radioactive waste and acid sludge. A 2021 Harvard University report found that every ton of rare earths generates 13 kilograms of toxic dust, 75 cubic meters of acidic wastewater, and 1 ton of radioactive residue. The consequences are devastating. Around Baotu's Bayan Obo mines, once known as the world's rare earth capital, entire cancer villages have emerged. Children grow up with skeletal deformities. The Longnan River in Ganzhou has turned acidic, its pH dropping to 3.8, destroying more than 20,000 mu, 16,000 acres of farmland. In Sunwu County, a small town of just 230,000 people, over 1 billion yuan has been poured into pollution control efforts that can barely scratch the surface. Toronto Squareface emphasized that the West's reluctance to refine rare earths domestically does not stem from technological weakness, but from moral rejection, a refusal to trade ethics for efficiency. Companies like MP Materials and Linas ship their ore to China and Malaysia for processing, fully aware that these places serve as the world's environmental sacrifice zones. China's dominance in magnet production, he argued, is built on cheap labor, low standards, and state subsidies, not genuine competitiveness. A Toronto representative further argued that even if China suddenly cut off rare earth exports, it would not collapse the U.S. economy or its defense sector. The industries most vulnerable would be renewable energy and wind power. While semiconductors, which use only trace amounts of cerium and yttrium, would face minimal disruption. TSMC, for example, maintains 1 to 2 years of stockpiles. The F-35 fighter jet relies on rare earths for its motors, sensors, and radar systems, but existing U.S. reserves can last 6 to 12 months. Rare earths in reality are not rare at all. They are more abundant in the Earth's crust than copper. What is scarce is the will to mine and refine them responsibly. As the world pivots toward decarbonization, the next race in rare earths will not be about who can mine more, but who can pollute less. Future competition, Toronto Squareface predicted, will revolve around technological innovation, recycling efficiency, and green chemistry, not exploitation. He urged the international community to hold the CCP accountable for its environmental destruction and to demand transparency in the rare earth supply chain. Every electric car, he said, should come with a power, not just of carbon footprint, but of human and ecological cost. The rare earth story is also a story of American loss and rediscovery. From General Motors' sale of neodymium magnet patents to China in the 1980s, to the 1995 relocation of the magnet quench plant, which transferred critical technology overseas, to China's 2010 embargo on Japan, which stunned global markets, the U.S. endured a lost 30 years. But the tide is turning. Today, the Mountain Pass mine in California glows with new life. The Stillwater plant in Oklahoma hums with the sound of machinery reborn. And soon, the F-35 fighter jet will soar using dysprosium-based magnets made in Texas. Once the U.S. completes its closed-loop supply chain, from mine to magnet, China's monopoly, built on pain and pollution, may finally begin to crumble.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.